Devlin, Untamed.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The Platform.
iOS, it's only sport. That is the name of our radio show. That is the name of this podcast. To remind you again, if you want to listen to us live, we do the show between 1 and 4 weekdays, but you've got to download the app because we're a radio station that's only available via your phone. You've got to download the app called The Platform NZ. And then we condense the highlights of the 3 hours into this podcast. Special guests lined up today. Sir Steve Hansen, Rugby World Cup winner 2015. Ryan Girdler, Premiership winner for the Panthers 2003. Mark Andrews, Springbok World Cup winner, broke our hearts in 1995. Greg Martin, also on the show, as always, on a Thursday. We play a little bit of what has more chance of happening in a brand new game, glass half full, glass half empty, about the All Blacks 23, selected to play Italy. But first, as always, tablets in hand, I say gather my flock. It is time for a sermon. The All Blacks have been announced for this weekend. Let's go to the mountaintop.
We live in an amazing, amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots.
The All Blacks are making a statement. The All Blacks are sending a message. The All Blacks are laying down a blueprint. The hyperbole has started, people. The mainstream sports media rolling out more cliches than we're going to see stoppages in play Saturday morning against Italy. Is this the best All Black side we could select? Almost. There's a couple on the bench, Lomax and Sam Cane, who you'd expect will start in the quarterfinal, plus the suspended Ethan de Groot. But otherwise, this is as good as it gets. In comes Shannon Frizzell. Scott Barrett preferred to start at lock ahead of Whitelock. The backline, the same first-choice backline that all of us would have expected. No surprises there at all. The bench, which is there, so we are continuously told, for impact, features in my mind a couple of players who make virtually none of that at all, or certainly nothing significant enough anyway to change a game in our favour if that is what is needed at the time. I do have many positional questions here. Is Beauden Barrett a 10 or a 15? Is Scott Barrett a lock or a blindside? Is Geordie Barrett a 12 or a 14 or a 15? Is Will Jordan a 14 or 15? Is Damien McKenzie off the bench a 10 or a 15? We seem to have a lot of multi-positionalists as opposed to positional specialists. Regardless of all that, we will beat Italy, and we will beat them well. 16 times we've played in test matches, 16 All Black wins at an average score of around about 55-10, and at World Cup it blows out to 60-9 or something similar. Whatever happens on Saturday, it's Italy. It's Italy, a team we should wipe the floor with regardless. What we need to see is an All Black side that plays with pace, aggression, physicality, is ruthless and gives them a right Roger and never lets up for 80 minutes. But in the end, let's all remember, it's not France, it's not South Africa, and it's not Ireland. We will win this test match and we'll win it well. But whether that means we're good enough to beat Ireland in the quarterfinal, I don't really think we're going to learn enough to tell.
Devlin.
What do you want? We want information. Information. You won't get it.
The Platform.
Steve Hansen kicks the show off. That's Sir Steve Hansen coming to you in about 2 or 3 minutes' time. Lachlan, sports news headlines.
Yeah, I'll start off with the Dally M's. I want to say one thing actually that I have enjoyed. Well, two things. One, I've seen people complaining on Twitter, and I saw one other sports broadcaster in this country tweet something essentially saying what at Kalen Ponga winning it ahead of Sean Johnson, which, look, based on the system and how the points are allocated, and if you get 6 points if you're the best player on your team in that game, it kind of adds up and makes sense why Kalen Ponga got it.
Well, he gets 6 every week that Newcastle run onto the pitch, don't they?
After round 12, when voting was made public, it then goes behind closed doors for the second half of the season. Kalen Ponga had 6 points. Payne Haas was leading with 30. Kalen Ponga finished with 56. He got 50 points in those last 12 rounds.
They won 10 of their last 11 games.
I know. And he was a superstar through all 10 of those games. So it kind of makes sense. They do need to totally change the system, though. All right, so the Dally M Awards were last night. Sean Johnson very narrowly missing out. He finished second, 1 vote behind Kalen Ponga. He had 56 points. I should call them points, sorry, not votes. He had 56 points. Sean Johnson had 55. Payne Haas wasn't even in the top 5 in the end. Nathan Cleary and Daly Cherry Evans finished ahead of him. But there was something to celebrate for the Warriors. Andrew Webster named Coach of the Year. Very well deserved. I think if any three of them had won it, they all deserved it. But it's wonderful to see Andrew Webster getting that gong for a stellar job this year. This is the team of the season. Of note, Dallin Watene-Zelezniak, one of the two wingers. Shaun Johnson, the halfback. Adam Fanua-Blake, one of the two props. So 3 Warriors getting into the team of the season there. There were 4 Broncos players and 2 Panthers players, so more Broncos given nods there. So well done to the Warriors. Well done to Shaun for being in contention. And well done to Adam Fanua-Blake. That shirt that he's wearing.
I'll tell you what, he deserved a gong for that.
Yes.
The yellow snakeskin number. Search it out, people, and have a look. You got to be able to wear that, and that guy is.
Looks sensational. The All Blacks have named their team to take on Italy. This is on Saturday morning, 8 a.m. New Zealand time. It is pretty much the best team you'd think they can name right now, bar a couple of players. This is the full starting 15. Ofatonga Fasi, Cody Taylor, Nepo Lalala, Brody Retallick, Scott Barrett, Shannon Frizzell, Dalton Papali'i, Ardie Savia. Ardie is the captain. Aaron Smith, Richie Mo'unga, Mark Talia, Geordie Barrett, Rico Ioane, Will Jordan, Bowden, Barrett. The bench, Dane Coles, Tamaiti Williams, Tyrell Lomax, Sam Whitelock, Sam Kane, Cam Roigard, Damien McKenzie, Anton Leonard-Brown. The Black Ferns, they've named their squad to face Australia in an O'Reilly Cup match in Hamilton. That is on Saturday, by the way. Alan Bunting, the coach, bringing in 3 debutants. They'll come off the bench. Them being Auckland prop Chris Villico, Manawatu loose forward Layla Sai, and Canterbury winger Martha Mataele. They'll put on the Black Ferns jersey for the first time. A very good debut, very promising debut from Amelia Walmsley, the shooter for the Silver Ferns. She's helped the Kiwis level the Tiny Jameson series, beating England 57-36 in Porirua. Walmsley netted an impressive 36 goals from 41 attempts, supported by captain Emiliano Canasio, who got 21 goals and 10 assists. So it's good to see that series knotted up at 1-1. Kiwi Liam Lawson is moving to end speculation over his immediate future in Formula One. He's shutting down any prospect of joining another team, saying, "I'm a Red Bull driver. All the Red Bull seats are filled, and unfortunately for me, that means that for now, I'll be a reserve driver. I've got my head down at the moment, trying to make the most of these races." And you can't really blame him. There's suggestions he could go to Williams. They haven't sorted their driver lineup fully for next year. Alex Albon signed on. Logan Sargent might not be kept on, but it looks like Liam Lawson is happy to stay as a reserve driver for the time being at Red Bull. League Cup, English League Cup this morning. Man City lost. They lost to Newcastle 1-0, so they're out of the League Cup. So praise be they can't get the quadruple. Liverpool beat Leicester 3-1 after being 1-0 down. Those are probably the 2 biggest results. Arsenal and Everton, I believe, also winning as well. Actually, I'll just double check that. Everton winning 2-1 away to Villa. Arsenal winning 1-0 away to Brentford. Fulham beat Norwich City. Chelsea won a game. They scored a goal as well. Their first goal they've scored this month, I'm pretty sure. They beat Brighton 1-0.
Devlin.
Oh my goodness me!
The platform.
He coached us to winning the Rugby World Cup in 2015, was assistant under Ted Henry in 2011, bowed out in 2019. You all know who I'm talking about. His name is Sir Steve Hansen. And we all do the impression of him, don't we? Joining us on the program and on this podcast to talk about Australian rugby, crisis that is in. Should we worry about that or not? More importantly, can this All Blacks side go through this tournament and win the final? Between 2019 and this World Cup, looking at what you saw and were part of in Japan compared to what you're watching now, how has rugby changed? How have the best teams changed?
Well, one of the things that have changed is that the game's slower. You know, ironically, we've been trying to put all these things in place to make the game more ball and play time. Well, we're not getting more ball and play time. It wasn't until we saw a referee who wanted the game to be played like it should be in the Irish South African Test match.
Agree totally.
No, he didn't go to the TMO every 5 seconds. He actually took control of the game, and that's what we want from our refs. We have to give them confidence to be able to do that, and he didn't allow players just to say, "Oh, look, I need a breather," or "I need to do my boots up," or "I need to have my tummy patted." You know, he said, "No, we're playing on."
Yes.
And that forced the game to have a decent flow about it, which, you know, the biggest complaint the spectators and fans have is the game is getting hard to watch. Now, we can't afford that. There was no yellow cards or red cards, which was great. You know, like the red cards I would be quite confident in saying that since they've been introducing all these red cards, we haven't prevented one head knock, and that's the whole point of it. Like, we're trying to get better at making sure we don't get people injured. Well, the red cards aren't stopping that. All they're doing is highlighting more and more of them, and most of them are unintentional. So, it's an old song we keep singing, but we need to be looking at different ways of actually educating our players how to tackle, change a few laws up, and then, personally, the TMO, way too much involvement in the game for me. Get to the point where, okay, the only thing he can adjudicate on is tries. Is it a try or no try? And all the foul play stuff, if it's seen, goes on report. If it's not seen and it's happened, then the judicial system, comes to play, and bang. Like if it's a real intentional punching someone or kicking someone or a real deliberate act, then well, we've always had a red card for those things, so that doesn't change. We've got to make the game something that fans want to get excited about and watch, and can't rely on people being rugby nuts forever.
How do we, the All Blacks, if we play Ireland in the quarterfinal, that looks really likely, after watching Ireland, South Africa, and just the sheer physical nature of those two forward packs, which I thought was a fantastic test match, thoroughly absorbing. How do we beat a team like that? Because our forwards don't look at the moment, I mean, this is just my view of it, that they don't look as though that physically we can compete in that kind of headlock contest for 80 minutes. How do we break those teams down?
Well, we can compete. That what you're saying, I don't agree with.
Okay.
We can compete, but what we've got to look at and say in the last few tests we haven't, and then ask ourselves why. Well, 4 weeks, 7 players hadn't played for 4 weeks before we played South Africa, so they're always going to run out of petrol, especially when they went 7-7 themselves. They had a big shift in their forward pack, and then again against France, okay, well, they played 2 games in 6 weeks. So it's not enough rugby, but they took that choice because they want to build into this tournament and they're going to get plenty of rugby. So how are South Africa and the likes of those teams that have had lots of games and tough pools going to be travelling at the back end of the tournament? Are they going to start feeling it? That's the first thing. But look, I think if we want to beat Ireland, we have to be able to take them on up front, contest that line-out time, make our scrum really potent and challenge them there. Breakdown, I think we need to go through the breakdown. They're not putting anybody in the breakdown themselves. So go through it rather than trying to play wide. And then once we start going through it and we narrow them up a bit, then we can go wide. We have to get to Sexton. Like he's a phenomenal player, probably the best I've ever seen at making the right decisions on the line, who to give the ball to. I don't think I've seen a player anywhere in the world or any time in the world as good as he is at offloading the ball to the right person at the right time, under pressure too, I might add. So we've got to get to him, and that means anyone around him we have to tackle. So the South Africans showed us what to do there. Like, they just tackled everybody around the ball because he could give it to any one of them, and that put them under a wee bit of pressure. So they're tough, so we have to make sure that we're prepared to stay in the fight, take the points when they're on offer, and keep ticking the scoreboard over and try and put them under pressure from a scoreboard point of view. If we can put scoreboard pressure on them, it's like, oh, here we go again, we're not going to get past the quarterfinal. So that'll put a bit of pressure and maybe distract them away from where they need to be mentally. But they're a good side. Both them and South Africa are very good sides, but so are we. I think the 4 top teams are all capable of winning it. France have had a bit of a knockback with Dupont being injured, but if you have a good day, you have a bit of luck and there's no yellow or red card, you're in the fight. And it's just going to be a shame to see 2 good sides get put out in the quarterfinals when the draw could have been done as it is in the World Soccer game, 6 months out, and these would have been the semi-finals.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full.
Next!
A brand new game we're playing, Lachlan.
We need to talk.
It is called...
We need to talk.
Glass half empty, glass half full. So the All Blacks 23 quickly. Offa and Nepo are the props. Cody Taylor at hooker. I'm only saying that. Okay, no, I'm going to be glass half full. You're going to be glass half empty. Oppa and Nepo are the props. Cody Taylor in at hooker. Brodie Retallick, Scott Barrett. The back row. Frizzell, Papali'i, Savia. Aaron Smith, Mwanga. Oh, the back line we could pick ourselves. Talia on the left wing. Will Jordan on the right wing. Beauden Barrett, the best fullback in the world. And that midfield rambunctious combination. They're just line bust and break tackles every time they get the ball. Geordie Barrett, Rico Ioane. The reserves, Dane Coles ahead of Samasoni. Sorry, I'm glass half full guy. Tamati Williams, Tyrell Lomax, Sam Whitelock, Sam Kane, Cam Roygar, Damien McKenzie, and the giant that is Anton Leonard-Brown, who has every time he's put an All Black jersey on been the man of the match or close to it. Lachlan. Let's play glass half full, glass half empty. I'm going to be glass half full about this. You're going to be glass half empty. Kicking it off with Nepo and Offa. Two ball-playing props are going to go out there and express themselves. This is exactly what we need.
Okay, well, I guess if I'm glass half empty, I've got my hood over my head. It's raining outside. My cup of coffee's gone cold and my hot dog's stale. So these are two props that were there in 2019. They were there in the semi-final. Offa didn't start, but he played. I'm pretty sure he came off the bench. And they have been underwhelming at best the last 4 years. They've done nothing to suggest they can go out there and prove that they are the best in their positions for the All Blacks, and two, beat a high-quality opposition. Now, it's only Italy this weekend, but this is probably the team we're going to have in the quarterfinal, or close to it.
Glass half full. Dane Coles is the second best hooker in the country, and not only that, he might be a veteran and he might spend a lot of time on the wing, and he doesn't really pick and go and break tackles, but he's Colesy, and we love him, and Colesy.
There's more salt than pepper on his head now, isn't there? He is an old man. Now, I love Dane Coles.
I love Dane Coles.
And at his best, he's a sensational player. He is well past his best, I think. And I would rather see someone like Samasoni Tokiaho either starting and giving that impact that we think he can give us, or coming off the bench to give us that impact at the 50-minute mark. Like, why is the guy who was our best hooker last year, was a bit of a revelation in a really poor All Blacks test year, is now somehow not considered even our second best, when the other two guys, as far as I'm concerned, haven't done anything consistently to prove that they are the best options, or better options.
Impact off the bench, then Lachlan. I'm glass half full guy. You're glass half empty guy. And I'm saying that Damien McKenzie, yes, you know that he could play first five. He can control a test match. He could play 15. He could spot that gap. And Anton Leonard-Brown, well, they call him the glue. He's going to keep the team together. He'll be... I can't do it. I can't do it. Why the hell have we not got Samasoni, who's an impact bloody player, and Lester Fainganuku coming off the bench, another impact player?
Well,
what's Anton Leonard-Brown going to do?
You look at Lester and you see muscle, size, you see his pace when he's running. I wouldn't want that guy running at me.
The world is not scared of you, Anton Leonard-Brown, mate. The world's laughing. They're going, that's your impact player?
But he scored that solo try against Namibia. Mate. Did you see him tear up Namibia?
I don't know. He was just powerful and strong, like he is against every opponent that is weak, has rhymes with hiss and starts with a P.
Now, I like Damien McKenzie. I think he's had a really good year. The only thing about him that's concerning is that the most important game of rugby he played this year, or one of them at least, the Super Rugby final, was one of his worst games. So when the pressure was on and he was playing up against a team that defend well, that do the basics well in those Crusaders, his kicking game was off. His ball playing was off. He wasn't the Damien McKenzie that he had been previously during the Super Rugby season. Against the Rebels
and against the Force.
He can bring an impact off the bench, Damien McKenzie. I'd much rather see... I like him coming off the bench and Beauden Barrett out of the 23 entirely, and have Will Jordan at fullback and Lester on the right wing.
Well, let's actually do that then, because that's how we're going to finish with a bit of quick fire then. You're going to tell me, out of position players, is Barrett, Scott, a lock or 6?
He's a lock. That's his best position.
Is Beauden Barrett a 10 or a 15?
He's a 10.
Well, why is he at 15?
Because for whatever reason, the All Blacks have decided that Beauden Barrett's a fullback these last 4 or 5 years. They started it in 2019. They haven't stopped.
Is Geordie Barrett a 12 or a 14 or a 15?
Well, he's a 15, but he is a 12 at the moment in the sense that he's our most reliable option at second five.
Is Will Jordan a 14
He's
or
a 15. Play him at fullback. It is his best position. 3 straight years now, Will Jordan has shown us, well, actually 4, 2020, 21, 22, now 23. 4 straight years he has shown us that he is the best fullback in the country. It's his best position. He consistently plays there for the Crusaders and is exceptional. The way he attacks, finds and attacks space is incredible. And for whatever reason, Ian Foster and the rest of the selectors think, no, he's better on the right wing with a first 5 playing fullback.
Is Mackenzie a better 10 or 15?
Based on size, I would say 10. I think he could be horrendously exposed defensively and under the high ball if he was playing fullback.
NRL Grand Final this coming Sunday. Yesterday we had a Broncos perspective from Brent Tate, who was a winner in 06. Today on the show, Ryan Girdler. He played for Penrith in that 03 final. You remember the Scott Sattler tackle on Skinny Byrne. One of the most memorable moments in Grand Final history. Ryan with his thoughts on who's going to win and why. Put your Penrith hat on for a second here. How do you break Brisbane down? How do you beat them?
Yeah, I think you need to make it a really uncomfortable night for them. They're a side that, as you saw the other day, as soon as they get momentum, as soon as they get a roll on, and they start getting their offloads away, and it brings in those edge players like Walsh and Mam, they're really hard to contain. And I don't even think Penrith will be able to contain them if they do get a roll on. So it's all about stopping their middlemen. And Penrith do that better than most sides with the collision up front with Leota, Fisher-Harris and Martin and Yeo. They're physical guys. But the only way to really shut down Brisbane is try and get on top of Haas, try and get on top of Flegler, try and get on top of Carrigan, and then, make sure that you shut their offloads down and they don't get quick play the balls, and then Reynolds and Mam and Walsh play on the back of that. It's not easy. You guys had moments where you had a bit of success with it last week. But I think if you're going to beat the Broncos, it's the only way. You've just got to go through the front door with them.
Yeah, their offloads were killing us, weren't they? And especially that, their body position. I was talking about this with Brent Tate yesterday, that thing there, they're getting tackled, they're turning straight away in the tackle, almost putting their back to you as a tackler and getting rid of that ball. It just so happens so quickly. Plus players in motion. They seem to have players in motion.
Yeah, all the good sides do that. And I think that's one of Penrith's best attributes as well. You look at when they've got the football and the work that the players who don't actually get the ball, they do to get themselves back into position to, be involved in the next ruck. I think that's what stands sort of Penrith and maybe to a lesser degree the Broncos apart from the rest of them. It's just their urgency and their willingness just to do the little things that end up making a big difference. So, certainly they're a very dangerous side with the football. They're defensively, sort of hard to break down as well, but they do have some young players there. We saw that last week with Walsh. They're flamboyant. They can come up with errors, and I think if they can get in off to a much better start than they did last week and put some scoreboard pressure on Penrith and have Nathan and the likes trying to chase some points, I think it might be a hard afternoon for the Panthers. But if they don't, if they let Penrith dictate turns and go through their sets and not make errors and kick to corners and hand them back possession in the wrong areas of the field, well, Penrith will make them pay.
Ryan Girdler with this 03 winner with Penrith and over a couple of hundred games in the NRL plus Origin and Test for Australia. This is the platform. All right, so how much does the experience count, knowing that you're up against a team that has played 3 consecutive finals, won 2 of those, so they know exactly what it takes?
Yeah, I think that'll play a decent part, especially in the preparation. But, I think I remember when we went into the grand final, we played against the Roosters, who won the comp the year before.
Right.
So there's just that little bit of me that thinks that, and this is what's amazing about Ivan and what he's been able to get out of that group for the last couple of years, that, they just seem that their willingness and desire to win the premiership again and again and again has been astounding. Because you always think, the guys coming up that have never won one, it's got to mean more to them. There's got to be something that they can find during the contest. But Penrith just they always seem to want to get better, and they do that on a every season they lose players and they lose coaching staff and they get better and better and better. So you definitely can't question any of that. But you would have to say that, the Broncos are going to be very excited. It's a huge, I live up in Queensland, and it's been a huge week up here now, and they're a young side and they are a little bit inexperienced, but they certainly don't lack confidence, and they won't be going in there thinking they can't do it. But whether or not Penrith can, with that experience, take advantage of that, I guess that'll play a part on the weekend.
Yeah, 2 grand finals for them to look forward to too up there.
What's that? Oh, yeah, the Lions as well, right?
Yeah, that's right. Did you move up for the sunshine? Of course.
Yeah, I did, mate. Yeah, left Sydney about 2 years ago and ended up sort of finding my way up to the Sunshine Coast and, haven't looked back, mate, to be honest.
All right, let's just turn the clock back briefly then, and thank you so much for your time to 2003. Do you call Scott Sattler every week and thank him for that tackle?
What tackle?
The tackle in the grand final.
Oh, the Sattler tackle. I'd forgotten all about it, Martin. Sorry, mate. No, I've erased that from the memory.
Toddy Byrne.
I end up putting the kick in. See, I put the kick in that got charged down, and then, so it wasn't a nice moment for me in that game.
Okay.
But lots of good memories, mate, this time of year. I was fortunate enough to, never thought I'd actually win a premiership. Was never really in a team that I thought had the credentials, but we've sort of found a way with a lot of juniors and, just a lot of things that just got to go right in a 12-month period to get the title. And I was just fortunate enough to be in the right place at the right time. And, Sats put off that tackle. It was obviously pretty important on the day. And this time of year, mate, it brings back lots of memories. So,
is it one of those things, and I asked Brent about this yesterday as well, because it stays with you forever, doesn't it? And this must be a glorious time of year, because I know it's not something that you think about every single day, but when you do think about it, it must be so cool.
Yeah, and that's what it is. And whether it's, Origin or tests, whatever, you see the guys going into camp, you just know what it's all about, and brings back there lots of memories. But there's nothing like being part of a premiership winning side and the memories that you get through the week, and then you always seem to touch base with the guys that you did it with. There's a special bond there as well. So very, let's just say, envious of the guys. The training sessions, getting the bus down to the game, and then especially winning it, and then those moments in the sheds after the game, and then coming back to your community, and hopefully you guys get to experience that one day not too far away. Is just sharing it with the people that have been on the journey the whole way is just something that you never forget.
Good on you. Who wins the final then?
Mate, I think I'm actually going to go with the Broncos. Like, my heart says Penrith, and I really hope they can get another one, but there's just intuitively something about me that, I was at that game last week and I watched them sort of tear you guys apart at times and then take their foot off, and I just think if they go out there, and can play at a certain level for 80 minutes, I don't think anyone can go with them.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full. Right now,
The Tight Five.
5 separate sporting issues, around about 60 seconds or so on each. When the bell, we move quickly on to the next one. Martin says, Ross, have you ever gotten over Steve Walsh and Wayne Barnes? Good question, Ross. Kalen Ponga gets the Dally M. Are you surprised? Does he deserve it? Lachlan. Uruguay beat Namibia in the Rugby World Cup this morning. Significance of this is, who's going to win that grand final? Penrith versus Brisbane. Handré Pollard to start versus Tonga. Is this the signal that he will be the Springbok first 5 from here on in during this Rugby World Cup? Dame time. Heading to the Bucks. What does that mean for them in the NBA? Let's celebrate all those Warriors wins at the Dally M's as well. So kick it off there. Coach of the Year, Andrew Webster. Adam Fanua-Blake wearing the money shirt. He looks a man. Handsome man, big man, carries it really well. Have a good look online at that shirt he's wearing. He is one of the 2 props of the year. Dallin, God, I'm calling them like I know these guys. I don't. Dallin Watene-Zelezniak, one of the 2 wingers of the year. SJ gets halfback of the year. Kalen Ponga gets the Dally M. First, celebrate the Warriors' wins. I just think that that is reflective of what the team has done this season. Those 4 individuals have stood out in most games that they've played. Spectacular performances most weeks, consistent performances most weeks. And I'm adding Andrew Webster to that because he has been the guiding light and he's been the puppeteer behind all of this. So I think no argument there that all 4 deserve their gongs. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I would have been more than happy with any of the 3 coaches getting it because they all deserve it for different reasons. Andrew Webster's done a sensational job with the Warriors. Sean Johnson, I sort of was thinking about this a bit yesterday as I've been banging the drum of Payne Haas or Reece Walsh all year to get the award. And then I thought I'd actually be stoked as hell if Sean Johnson won it.
Oh, I think we all would have been.
Yeah, it feels like it was probably his last chance to get such a
great
honour.
story. I mean, then the Sunday night movie script and Tay would have come in and the whole thing would have happened, right? Okay, so
no, very happy for all of them. They all well deserve it. Definitely deserve their awards.
And Kalen Ponga, and we talked about this to start the show a little bit. We'll revisit it quickly. I just need it explained to me how the point system works. How they, because, it just. I can't get my head around the fact that when you miss so many games during the season, he missed a quarter of their games, Lachlan. Okay, he missed 6 out of 24. So can you win it? Reece Walsh not nominated, people, because when you get a suspension, I think that just takes you out of the voting straight away, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm looking at ineligibility. The NRL, in the event of on-field suspensions in line with this year's innovation of 2 judges adjudicating each match. Under the new judging system, each match of suspension will invoke a 6-point deduction rather than the previous 3 points.
So he loses 18 points.
Yeah, so he loses heaps.
But you said that Ponga had 6 points at one stage, and then
after 12
so
rounds.
he must have the 10 games they won in a row. He must have got 6 out of every one of those games to get 66.
Well, yeah, and when you think about it,
and he was 30 behind. Payne Haas?
He was 24 behind. Payne Haas was leading the way at the midway point of the season with 30. Sean was something like 5th or 6th with maybe 23, I think. Ponga was way down the order of 6.
I'd like an explanation.
Yeah, but
I'm not begrudging Kalen Ponga.
No,
he's had a hell of a season.
It makes sense because you think about how brilliant he was at the second half of the season. It makes sense that he gets maximum points. So it works. Was he the best player throughout the whole season? No. But his peak during the season was better than anyone else's peak, if that makes sense. So, yeah. But it's how the system's worked for many, many years now.
Uruguay 36, Namibia 26. Significance of this is what? I can tell you that's Uruguay's 4th ever win at a Rugby World Cup, the first at this one. Namibia have never won a game, so that would have been their first win. Apart from that, so what? 2 teams that, really world rugby. You're struggling, aren't you?
Well, Uruguay did beat Fiji at the last World Cup.
Okay, there you go. Fair. All right, okay, in that case, all right.
But, yeah.
I mean, I'd be more interested to know how many people in Uruguay even know. Right, because that's a country that's won 2 football World Cups.
Oh, I think it would make some sort of noise, but outside of football, what other sport do they follow?
Football.
Yeah, I know it's football, but
outside of football, they follow football.
It's football. It's
they
like
follow
Brazil,
football. That's right, football, and then there's football. It's like, a mate of mine was working in India for years up there for ESPN, and he said, as far as his sports newspapers go back in the days when they had newspapers, he said it was cricket, and if in doubt,
cricket.
There you go. Who wins the NRL Grand Final then? Penrith versus Brisbane.
I will be... bugger. I think the Panthers will win.
You're just saying that to try and evoke some kind of karma god by thinking that if you say that out loud, well then Brisbane...
It's the smart decision to think that they're going to win. I absolutely think the Broncos can. I think the Broncos can rip apart that defence, but I don't know. And we beat them earlier in the year.
They beat you
and they beat us as well. So.
Significant thing is that there were hardly any points scored in those games. Yeah. There was 25 points scored in the first game, 13-12 to you guys. There was 19 points scored in the second game, 15-4 to them. Brent Tate yesterday, when I asked him the same question.
My heart says Broncos, but I think the Panthers will be too good.
Andre Pollard is going to start versus Tonga. Does this mean that he's got the number 10 jersey? Yes, indeed.
He can kick goals.
Does this mean that the Springboks will be passing the ball from him to the guy next to him, normally called the second 5? No.
Nope.
Will a winger, either winger for the Springboks, get their jersey dirty from here on in until the Rugby World Cup?
Well, there might be a bomb kick to one of them.
Yeah. I'm guessing they're
going... interception.
Yeah. 10-man rugby plus a 7-man bench, 17-man rugby.
Well, they were a little bit more expansive against us and throughout the tournament so far, and they tore us apart with the way they played. So I wouldn't move away from it too much.
Knockout rounds are coming, mate. You need a kicker who kicks 9 out of 10. Andre Pollard is that guy. That's what they're going to be doing. Scoreboard pressure. We've got to understand this. If we play Ireland in the quarterfinal, we need to kick every single point on offer. Get 9 points up, so they've got to score a try.
Oh,
Okay?
but what if you're only 5 metres out? You can get a rolling maul.
Just kick the goddamn goal, get the ball back, soak up the clock. Dame time. Dame Lillard is going to the Bucks. Now, you've never liked the Bucks because you don't give Chris Middleton any kind of respect.
You've got a hard on for Chris Middleton. You love the guy.
I just think he's the number 2-1-2 with Giannis and those. Okay,
Chris
Milwaukee
Middleton's
got
good.
bloody lucky
They
that
did.
year that they won it because the Brooklyn Nets had no Kyrie because he was being Kyrie. James Harden was a bit injured.
Steady on.
And you had KD, whose big toenail hadn't been clipped the night before, and that cost them what would have been a win in Game 7 in the Eastern Conference, and it went to overtime and they lost it. But is this guy the difference now?
I think he spreads the floor at a far more elite level than Chris Middleton does. He's much more dynamic on offense. He is absolute money from distance in terms of shooting long 2s and 3s. He can shoot from the logo. He can create shots. He can work off the pick and roll. But I mean, if you've got Giannis setting a screen and then you've got Dame running it around and you've all of a sudden managed to work around the defense so that someone's trailing Dame Lillard and then you've got Giannis rolling to the basket, well, you're in trouble.
So why did they lose in the first round this last year?
Some strange coaching decisions by Mike Budenholzer. There was a moment where they could have...
That's right, he got sacked after that,
he got sacked. There's a moment they could have called a timeout and to move themselves up the floor to get a game-tying basket, and they didn't, and then they missed it.
They lost to Miami, though, didn't they?
Lost to Miami. Miami played really well.
Was that in 6? I think it was in 6, wasn't it? 5? It was in 5.
I'm pretty sure it was in 5.
Jimmy Buckets took them.
Jimmy Buckets. They've been very inconsistent the last couple of years, the Bucks, but... It's a strange one. I think, because the biggest problem with them is, at least with Giannis, is that he can't shoot the ball. You've now got a guy next to him who can. The thing is, Dame Lillard is one of the 10 best players in the league. He's just been on a rubbish team for a couple of years.
There you go. So it's got to elevate them a day.
Devlin.
You've gotta love sport.
The platform.
Mark Andrews, Springbok world champion in 1995. He was part of the team that broke our hearts in Joburg. Joel Stransky with the drop kick and extra time. He was anchoring the scrum with Cobus Visa. Played 77 tests and 13 midweek matches for the Boks. 19 of those tests, though, against the All Blacks. So he knows more than anyone our strengths and weaknesses. And does he still believe that after Ireland outmuscled and physicaled his beloved Springbok, they can still win the Rugby World Cup? How has your opinion of where your Springbok side is at changed? How has it changed, if at all, after that bruising match against Ireland?
Well, what changed was before the Irish game when we lost Malcolm Marx. I think that changed the whole structure of our side. It changed the way our bomb squad works. It took away a huge part of our physicality and the way we play in the forwards. So the Springboks couldn't have had a worse injury in losing Malcolm Marx because he's really disrupted our whole structure and how we play. So unfortunately, before that game, I did say to my wife, who's not a big rugby supporter, and everybody was asking her, what does Mark think is going to happen?
Yes, I bet.
And I just said, Andy, I think we're gonna go down here by a couple of points, and I think we're going to lose it by kicks because we don't have a recognised kicker. You cannot play mainstream test rugby with 70% kicker. You just can't do it. You can, but you're not going to win many games, and that's basically what's happened.
What did Ireland surprise you with? Did they do anything that you weren't expecting?
No, they did exactly what I was expecting. They were going to try and counter the physicality of our pack. They were going to try and take us head on. And if you have a look at that game in the first 20 minutes, they couldn't get across the game line. Our defence was ferocious. Our set piece, we didn't get the dominance in the scrums that we used to. Again, without having marks there, it affected our scrumming ability. And then I think it gave the Irish pack a little bit more confidence that they could actually take on the Springbok pack. All they needed to do was to give themselves ball on the front foot. It didn't even have to be on the front foot. It just had to not be going backwards from set phases and for the impact. And they started getting that right about 25 minutes into the game. And then we were under pressure. And our Springbok side is not used to being under pressure from our pack, and it just we just couldn't catch up. And then missing the kicks that we missed, we just was points build pressure, and we couldn't build the pressure on the scoreboard. And sadly, the Irish were always going to try and go wide. They were going to try, and I was surprised in them coming through that break in the midfield so early. Moni's a fairly good defender, but I think it is just he did slip. That does happen, but I think that also gave the Irish a huge amount of psychological belief that they can take us on, and they did.
Mark Andrews is with us on the platform. So, providing that there isn't an enormous upset, we're looking at two quarterfinals, the All Blacks against Ireland and France playing South Africa. Does this in any way dent your confidence in terms of the Springboks? Do you still believe that that's one defeat? You did it in Japan where you lost a game and went on to win it. Is that the same scenario you're thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I have to be try and be positive here, and I do think we have a phenomenal Springbok outfit. We had a very balanced side, and again, I can't reiterate enough the loss that Malcolm Marx is to the Springbok setup. So before this, I was pretty confident. Whether we played the French or the All Blacks in the quarters, I don't think makes a huge difference, because if you're going to win the World Cup from here on in, you have to win every game. You got to win your quarters, semis, and finals. So if you play the French in the quarters or the All Blacks in the quarters, you may have to play them in the finals as well. So it doesn't really make a difference. But I just, again, the loss of Malcolm Marx really has probably taken a bit of my confidence away. So it's going to be a real battle from here on in. Playing against the French in the quarters, I think may work in our favour, purely because having played in the home World Cup, I know what the pressure's like, and thankfully in all the games that we played, we were on the front foot, and we didn't have to catch up a game from behind. So the Springboks have that ability to put you under pressure. We've got Pollard, who's come back in.
Yes,
he'll most certainly start in the quarters, and he's an 80% plus kicker. So the way the French can build pressure by the scoreboard, the Boks have got to do the same thing.
You just seem to have a very basic game plan. You know what you're doing. You stick to it. And you don't seem to be fazed at all by any criticism of it might be a sort of one style of rugby. It's winning, isn't it? And when it comes to a World Cup as well, in 1995, the All Blacks, did we play all the rugby? Well, I argue a lot with people who say, the All Blacks were the best side. No, they weren't. The best side won the final because you figured out a way to stop us and slow us down. Mark, that's the truth. When you look back,
are you a new Kiwi? Well, you must have just moved to New Zealand recently with that attitude.
Well, it's just a realistic attitude. It's like 2011. I mean, we might have been the best team there. Good God, France just about got it off us. It was only 8-7. So in the end, it's just who scores the most points, isn't it?
Correct. I mean, but it's a fair argument to say that there was a better team at the World Cup. They just didn't win it. So they're two different things, and you spot on. The Springboks have worked out a way of playing that suits them. It has changed. We're not that one-dimensional anymore. Years gone by, it was just that kick, put the bombs up, playing the opponent's half, strangle them, try and build points with the scoreboard, or the pressure with the scoreboard, and just play very low-risk rugby. If you look at our outside backs today, we've got some of the most phenomenal wingers in world rugby. The ability to score tries with beat players with their feet, and will take balls out there. So I think it's what's made the Springboks a little bit more dangerous to play against now, in that you now don't really know if they're going to run that ball at you from their own 22. When in the old days you knew there was a 99% chance they were going to kick that ball in their own 22.
Greg Mutto Martin, former Wallaby fullback, Triple M breakfast host out of Brisbane. Just a miserable week for anyone who is a Wallaby rugby fan. However, he has got the double bubble to celebrate this weekend because two Brisbane teams are playing grand finals, the Lions in the AFL and the Broncos in the NRL. Mate, do you need a cuddle, do you? I mean, we've just been bombarded this week with bozo journalists telling us that, we've got to look after Australia, that Australian rugby needs us to be their friend, and we need Australian rugby to be strong.
It's been a tough week, mate. It has been a tough week. That was Monday. I was on air from 5 a.m. until 7 a.m. while the game went on here in Australia, and it's affected my demeanour, it's affected my attitude. And the thing is, I've got two things going on here, mate. I've got I'm a Brisbane person, so I've got the Lions in the AFL Grand Final. I've got the Broncos. That should be bringing me joy. But all I'm being weighed down by what the Wallabies. I had to front with it today on radio. I finally got overwhelmed by people going, Marto hasn't explained what happened with the Wallabies. I don't know what happened with the Wallabies apart from I expected more. I believe the hype of Eddie. It's been horrible, mate. I do need a couch and I need a psychologist, and most of Australian rugby fans do. There's still a lot of us here, but no one wants to talk about it. We've been trying to pretend it didn't happen. Rugby doesn't exist anymore, so we're just moving on to other things. It's been horrible, Marty.
Well, hang on a second though, but Fiji could lose to Georgia and Portugal. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, in the Wallaby camp, over here you wouldn't have seen it, but they're obviously running with that line. They're going, well, we're not done with yet.
No, not done. Hell no. No, because you got a chance, yeah.
God.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, look,
it's all your fault. It's all your fault, though. You know that.
Well, of course it's my. It's what? It's my fault. It's New Zealand's fault. It's our fault for the fact that you've got 5 Super Rugby teams, of which 4 of them are crap. Okay. However, how's this for a good stat? I think you've got something like 35,000, or it could be more, male rugby players in your country compared to about 28,000 here. So go figure that. You've got more players to choose from than we have.
We've gone for quantity, not quality. That's bloody sure. Now, it's your fault. I think Raylene Castle is when the rot set in. Then you sent us, first it probably started with Robbie Deans, and then of course Dave Rennie finished us off, and not even Eddie could pull it out. Oh, it's sad. We're looking for all sorts of problems. You know what I worry about? I reckon we've dragged you down. Now you're 4th in the world. I think that playing us too often, I know you go, beat them again, but you've been dragged down to our level.
Well, let's finish on a happy note. Let's finish on happy time, because that basically is you got Brisbane and you got Brisbane. You got the Lions and you have got the Broncos. A double whammy this weekend in grand finals. Are you going to win them both?
The Bryans, we're calling them, the Bronco Lions. We're the outsider for both games, but there's no reason why we can't win both of them. So Brisbane was the centre of the universe with 90,000 people last weekend. Now Melbourne and Sydney get the games, but Brisbane has gone red hot. It's the home of all the athletes. You know what? The reason rugby's so weak in Australia is because rugby league's so strong. They're taking all our best athletes.
I'm just sitting there thinking, God, what a miserable weekend it's going to be if they both lose. Do you hate Collingwood more than you even hate New South Wales?
No, I don't have a personal thing against Collingwood because I've never lived in Melbourne. If you've lived in Melbourne, apparently you hate Collingwood people. I don't really hate them, but I love the Lions, mate. They started in '87, the year before the Broncos. They've just been a part of our world, and they haven't won for bloody ages. The Broncos haven't won since 2006. The Lions haven't won since 2003. So there's a real buzz, and we're shit at rugby.
That's our podcast for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to listen to the entire show, 1 till 4, Monday to Friday, download the Platform app, and via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to whatever shows over however many weeks at your leisure, at your listening pleasure. Platform Plus. First thing to do, though, is download the Platform app.
Devlin.
Unbelievable. Incredible.
The Platform.